In this video, we will show you line types and properties. In VStitcher, there are several different types of line. The first line type is edge. Edges are the lines that make up the outside limits of each pattern piece. When we select an edge in the 2D window, note that its length is displayed in a specially highlighted box. We can change the length simply by typing in a new value. Note that this only works if we have enabled edit points on the horizontal contextual menu. One of the important features of VStitcher is that when we select an element in the 2D window, its details in various options are displayed in the context view. For example, we can also adjust the length of an edge in the context view. There are various actions we can perform on the edge shown here. For example, we can save an edge as a ruler, trace it as an internal line, clone edges by offset, and so on. Let's do a clone by offset. A clone by offset copies a selected edge or edges and creates one or more parallel lines at set distances from the original. Assume we want to move the hem lines by 2 centimeters using clone by offset. First, we select all the edges. Then we go to the context view and in transformation at Y, type in the distance we want of 2 centimeters. Then, with the edges still selected, we click Clone Edges by Offset. We type in the distance we want of -2 centimeters, a minus figure because we want the line to be inside the pattern piece. We select Extend to Edges and we apply the effect. Now we have extended the edge of the pattern piece with an internal hemline. At the bottom of the context view, edge properties are displayed. Here, we can add a shrinkage effect of the edge, switch a line to a quilting line when creating a puffy garment, and add reinforcement to an edge where needed. We'll cover properties like shrink, puffy, and force multiplier in later videos. The next type of line is an internal line. Internal lines are lines within the pattern. They are shown in pink. When we select an internal line, we again see its details and various options displayed in the context view. We can change the size of an internal line using the context view. Here's a tip. If we multi-select edges or internal lines, we can see the total measurement of the selected lines without having to manually add them together. The drop-down bar, Convert Internal Line To, allows us to choose whether to convert the internal line to a floating line or to convert it to an edge. This can be useful, for example, when amending a neckline shape. If we have a closed internal line, we can convert this to a hole. Holes can be moved within a pattern and will simulate as such in the 3D window. Note that the hole would become invalid in these conditions: if the hole is overlapping the piece's edges, if the hole is overlapping another hole within the garment, if the hole is overlapping darts or smart trims. When a hole is invalid, its edges are red and the hole will no longer be visible and simulated in 3D. The last option that's available from the drop-down is a slit. When we have an internal line that touches only one edge of the pattern, we will be able to convert the line into a slit. This option can be useful to create plackets or keyholes. Extend Shrink to Edges ensures the internal line goes from one edge to another without going beyond the pattern shape. Note that this automatically adds the glue property to the internal line. This creates a permanent connection between the line endpoint and the edge, so even if the line is moved, it remains attached to the edge. Slice allows us to cut a pattern along the selected line. For example, we might do this to split a pattern to create color block panels. When we slice patterns, the edges of the patterns should still be stitched, and we would only need to dress the garment to update the simulation. Slicing on a closed internal line within the pattern will cause the dialog box to pop up, asking if we want to convert the line into a hole. Slicing an internal line that only touches one edge of the pattern will cause a dialog box to pop up, asking if we want to convert the line to a slit. Reduce Points helps to reduce the number of intermediate points on an internal line or a pattern edge. While this is a useful feature, we always need to take care not to overuse it. We want to reduce the points just enough to maintain the integrity of our patterns. Join allows us to combine two separate internal lines to become one. At the bottom of the context view, line properties are displayed. We can add properties to the internal lines. For example, we can copy the line over to its symmetrical counterpart by selecting Symmetry. The cut mark option allows us to convert an internal line into a cut mark, which is displayed as a dotted line with the scissor markings to indicate that it's intended to cut the pattern along this line. Cut marks allow us to visualize color blocking prior to cutting the pattern. We can easily drag and drop fabrics or colors into the different areas after adding cut marks to have a better idea of the change. Additionally, if we have multiple cut marks on a pattern, we can divide the pattern along the cut marks. We also have other options like adding shrink, creating quilting lines for puffy garments, folding the pattern along a line, and creating an ironed crease line in the simulation. We'll cover these in later videos. The last type of line is the floating line. Floating lines can be identified as the blue lines. They do not belong to any patterns, unlike the internal lines. We can convert an internal line to a floating line. We can also draw a floating line using the pen tool. We can place floating lines over patterns to slice the pattern pieces, or we can convert a floating line to an internal line. As seen, lines in VStitcher are very powerful, and there are many options available to help make it easier to create stunning garments. We will cover some of these features in future videos. For more information, check out the Browsware Help Center.